Is raising eyebrows tonight. CNN has exclusive new video showing DOJ prosecutor Ed Martin posing for photos outside the Brooklyn home of New York Attorney General Letitia James, whom Martin is actively investigating for mortgage fraud, among other things. James denies any wrongdoing in that matter, but in this matter, that's Martin himself in the tan trench coat, joined by a DOJ colleague and a photographer from the New York Post. Now, this is so unusual, it reportedly even caught top Trump officials off guard. The New York Times reports that Attorney General Pam Bondi and her top deputy, Todd Blanche, let Martin know that his actions were not helpful. But Martin defended the move over the weekend.
I wanted to lay eyes on it. I think most people, if you're prosecuting something, you're careful. I didn't go there and announce it. Some woman came storming up and shooting video and talking to me, but I wanted to see the property.
My source tonight is Letitia James's attorney, Abby Lowell, who says that these investigations of her are politically motivated. Abby, first, you hear Ed Martin there with his explanation that he wanted to see the property. What is your reaction to that?
Brianna, it's so easy to make fun of the things Ed Martin does and says. I've seen headlines likening him in his trench coat to being Inspector Gadget. Somebody has said that he's making the Keystone Cops look good. But the point is, because it is so easy, people forget how serious this is. And it's not a funny matter at all. 40, 50, 80 years ago, each attorney general has spoken to the power of an individual prosecutor to affect lives of people, not because of what they've done, but who they are or what they've represented. And this is not a theoretical problem. It's not just at the level of Washington. When we allow prosecutors to do what they do, not because of the conduct, but because they are carrying out the president's wishes for revenge against, for example, Attorney General James, who brought a lawsuit against Mr. Trump and his businesses and got a multi-$100 million verdict, it can creep down to the point where Democrats then do it against Republicans, Republicans against Democrats, and soon even on everyday justice. And people rely on police and prosecutors and courts. We basically destroy the rule of law. So one brick at a time, you can bring down a building.
Ed Martin made another highly unusual move. He sent you a letter suggesting that Attorney General James should resign as an act of good faith. How are you responding to that?
Yet again, as I said, everything that Ed Martin does seems to create a new page in the Not to How You Do It book of being a responsible, ethical, and a person who's supposed to obey the law. So think about this. He was appointed on August 8th. 4 days later, he sent his first communication to me as lawyer for Attorney General James. You would imagine that in the world we're supposed to live in, somebody might ask for the facts, how it applies to the law, some information that might help the investigation. He certainly hadn't done much in 4 days. So 4 days in, does he ask for facts or the law? Twice in his letter, he asked for the Attorney General to resign. If people did not have better evidence that this is not about what she did, but it's about what President Trump has ordered the Justice Department to do, nothing better than his letter that asked for or demanded those two things. It just, again, is, I don't have to say much because he says it himself. And every time he does something, he's only proving the point. By the way, one piece too. Remember that of his many titles, if you look at his letter, he seems to have 4 or 5 different ones. One of them is to be the director of this thing called the Weaponization Working Group. Everybody should read George Orwell's 1984 about doublespeak. It's not that he's there to prevent weaponization. He's actually there to administer weaponization. And that's an example of that too. A prosecutor doesn't ask somebody to resign. A prosecutor asks somebody to give them the facts and the law. You also may remember that on the day he was appointed, I think he was on Fox News to announce his appointment. And I think he likened his mission as a theoretical prosecutor to something he said was to hit the landing, to kind of hit the mark. Well, as I had to say in my letter
to stick
today,
the landing, I think, right?
The job of a prosecutor is not the same as being a gymnast. So I think people have to look at this, not because this is a tit for tat from the Republicans against Attorney General James, but it basically every day breeds a lot of disrespect for the whole process. And that then seeps down to everything that people rely on the courts, prosecutors, police to do.
I want to play what Martin said over the weekend about the investigations into James, but also about Senator Adam Schiff. Here it is.
We're going to go to the very bottom of the facts, and if somebody did something wrong, we're not only going to hold them accountable, we're also going to look at everything else that they've been doing, because when you're a liar, you lie not just on one thing. When you're a cheater, you cheat not just on one thing. When you're doing corruption, you generally don't just do it on one thing.
Martin has also made clear that he wants to play out DOJ investigations in the court of public opinion. He said if they can be charged, we'll charge them. But if they can't be charged, we will name them, and we will name them. And in a culture that respects shame, they should be people that are ashamed. What is the effect of the full legal heft of the federal government taking that approach?
If we're at the point at which prosecutors, be them federal or state, being in a Republican administration now, believe that their job is to try people in the court of public opinion, then we're basically turning the clock back to mob rule, aren't we? That's why we have laws, evidence rules, judges, juries. It is so extraordinary for somebody who wields the power of the federal prosecutorial apparatus to say, if we can't make a charge against the person, we'll shame them in the media. When have you ever heard something like that? You know, this Justice Department creates new bad optics every day. I can't think of a time that it's been any worse, except even worse than, for example, the relationship that occurred between Attorney General Mitchell and President Richard Nixon. So the idea that we have somebody who is at the highest levels of the Justice Department saying, by the way, if I get a referral, I'll now look at not only what I've referred, but I'll check every other person's document, everything a person has done, every transaction. And if I can't find anything, then I'll go to the court of public opinion. It is scary. It's extraordinary. And that's why it's important that today I and others are calling it out. Because
Abby,
it creates just the opposite.
Can I ask you really quickly, because we're almost out of time here, but do you see legally any opportunity in this? You have Ed Martin outside of the AG's house. You have him sort of describing his approach here, which is extraordinary. Is that something that could actually favor you in court? Your client,
well, there are these, I understood what you meant. There are these concepts in the law called, for example, selective prosecution and vindictive prosecution. And what they basically mean is what their titles suggest they mean. So when Ed Martin or Attorney General Bondi empowering him says, you are now to be the special attorney for mortgage fraud, but he announces he's only looking at Democratic Senator Adam Schiff of California or New York State Attorney General New York, where the same allegations of questions are raised against Republican Attorney General Ken Paxton of Texas, that is the definition of selective prosecution. When the President of the United States orders his administration to go after his enemies and those that he has been the subject of a lawsuit for, like in the case of New York, that is the definition of vindictive prosecution. And so this case that Mr. Martin, is likely to bring, without regard to that there's no underlying facts, wrongdoing, or law to support it, will be the subject of what will become a classic example of selective and vindictive prosecution.
Abby Lowell, thank you for being with us this evening.
Thanks for having me, Bran.
Up next tonight, more National Guard troops from more states arriving to patrol the